let's get started with this webinar about the CodeGrade Intro to Python curriculum. Before we do that, I want to quickly highlight sort of what our vision is of CodeGrade. And we really think that learning to code is really challenging and teaching it is as well. And we also see that students learn best by doing. But setting up a lot of assignments and assessing those in a timely manner is quite hard without having a right infrastructure for that. And that's one of the main reasons we've started to developing our own assignments for you as well. Without sort of any tools to assess and give assignments, we think that giving out coursework for programming assessments is really difficult. Because assessing code in general is cumbersome, time-consuming, resource-intensive, and without having a centralized learning platform, managing and grading coding assignments can be very repetitive for you as a teacher, but also prone to error. Students will have a long feedback cycle, and it's also quite costly. And with that, setting up your own custom assignments, which is sort of what a lot of our current users do, can also be quite hard to do. So especially for those things like introductory courses, we want to provide a way where we can actually already give you preset assignments. So what our goal is basically we want to make learning to code effective. We want to make it easy to write and submit code where students instantly receive feedback. We connect this with LMS integration, Git integration, and a lot of other pedagogical features that are maybe more focused on manual grading, think rubrics, being able to give inline comments within the code, and having plagiarism detection as well, of course. We try to enable an iterative coding process that students sort of need so they can elevate their coding skills effectively. So, that's why we are releasing now our Intro to Python curriculum. And this curriculum comes with 40 assignments in total, grouped within 8 lessons that are fully automatically assessed. These are available standalone, but also integrated with Canvas, Blackboard, D2L, Brightspace, or Moodle. For these learning management systems, we offer export packages, so you can simply just import them in the course and use them straight away. If you don't use an LMS integration, it's also available standalone, and you can simply just import all the assignments all at once within your course. Students can either code online with the CodeGrade editor, or they can use their favorite editor and hand in their files, or even use Git to hand in. But for these intro assignments, we typically don't see Git being used. And we will showcase this in a second as well. Let's take a look at sort of the curriculum at a glance. It has 2 sort of parts. We have the core curriculum, which is 5 lessons, and we have the extra curriculum, which is an additional 3 lessons. We think sort of the 5 lessons is a really good introduction to Python programming, especially for non-CS students, but also definitely useful for CS students. And then for a bit more technical or longer courses, you may want to add the extra curriculum as well. So let's start with an overview here. Lesson 1 basically covers the basics. There are no prerequisites for this course, so students can get into this without any programming experience. So lesson 1 will go over print, of course, variables, arithmetics, data types, that kind of stuff. Then in lesson 2, we'll delve into I/O, so user input and output, strings, and conditional statements, so if-else statements basically. Then lesson 3 will go over how to structure this better using functions and go over loops, so for and while loops in Python. And then for lesson 4, we go into the data structures that are there, so lists, dictionaries, and sets, and also explain recursion. Lesson 5 then go over some of the built-in Python modules and give a little bit of basics in sort of other external packages students can use, and we do that with NumPy to sort of give them a sort of nice leeway into sort of what you can do with Python, and this is a bit more data science focused in this particular assignment. Within this curriculum, you can sort of pick and choose anything you want. So if you don't want to teach students about recursion, you can leave out those assignments. For instance, you can, of course, create your own assignments as well still, so you can just add on your own assignments too. So we try to make it sort of a basic curriculum that you can really easily integrate within your courses. These lessons, you can either do them, well, you can see this as a week, but if your course runs a bit differently, you might want to split them up in 2 weeks or whatever sort of you prefer. Then the extra curriculum as well, lesson 6 will go into object-oriented design. And then lesson 7 will have extras, regular expressions, using URL-lib, using matplotlib, and doing some very basic machine learning stuff, just to make those students enthusiastic about what they can do with Python. And then finally, we'll finish with a final project, which basically does OOP. This is the basic curriculum. Before we dive into sort of showcasing an assignment from every week, I do want to acknowledge that if you're teaching something else, you can of course create your own assignments for any language, but we will also be releasing an intro to Java curriculum soon as well, following sort of similar patterns as this one, but then of course more Java focused and probably a bit more object oriented, because yeah, it's Java. So let me go to the showcase then. So again, it works with any learning management system. For today, we have Python or Moodle. And you can see here that I have loaded the core curriculum here. So as you see, they come loaded right in here. It's really nice. And let me start with lesson 1. And we can just go into any of these assignments. So I'm going to go into this one. You will see there's an assignment description here, and every assignment comes sort of with a couple of headers. So first, a prerequisite. So you have to have Python installed or use our editor. And you need to have learned about the print statement, which is done in a previous assignment here. And then every assignment has a learning goal. So in this case, we want to get familiar with Python arithmetics, and then the task. And every task comes with sort of a nice little story that's sort of computing focused. So in this case, we explain a little bit about one of the first computers, and it also comes with a nice Wikipedia link, and basically learning the student a bit more. And in this case, they basically have to do a little task where they just have to print a few calculations, so they explore what Python does with calculations. So that Python is basically a calculator. Then every assignment also comes with some example usage. Again, if you use the CodeGrade editor, you don't actually have to run Python yourself. But if you use the file upload, you can just run it like this. And then finally, it comes with a learn more links. And these typically link to W3 schools, where there's a bit more information about what it does. And sometimes it also links to the Python documentation in some of the later assignments. So then I can basically go to next. CodeGrade will open right here. And I'm currently logged in as a student, and I can create a submission. So again, in this curriculum, you can either open the editor or upload files. So what I will do is I will open the editor. And every submission here also comes with a template for students. So I can open it up. It will load right here, and students basically start with the calculations.py file, and they have to print their arithmetics here. So I will do that now. So again, I can just print them in. So this is the solution for this particular assignment, some arithmetics. Press hand in, and it will actually run the automatic tests that have been set up for this assignment. So there's nothing you have to set up yourself. And as you can see here, every assignment comes with a rubric. So every assignment has sort of these learning goals, where in most assignments, the first one is sort of, is the functionality working correctly? Then for this particular assignment, 5A is that exponential one, I think, the interest one, which is a bit more difficult than the rest. So we have a separate rubric category, so students can already get a passing grade, sort of if they don't do that one, but if they do, it does it. And then 5B is a bit more difficult even, I think. Yeah, those are these last. So it's a modular one and the interest one. So if they aren't able to solve that, they get a 60%, but if they are able to solve these two, they get another additional 40%. And you can see we immediately, within a couple seconds, we get our grade of 100%, and I can actually edit it, and let's actually make a little mistake. So maybe we don't really understand how this works, and we have a different solution. Then again, I can just edit it, rerun, and then as a student, I can hand in as much as I want. As a teacher, you can actually limit that if you want, but the default is they can hand in as much as they want. And we also do encourage that to give that sort of iterative process. And again, you see these tests running. Within this curriculum, we use a couple of ways of automatically grading. We use a lot of these structured testing, and there's actually hints in these as well. But we also do a lot of just checking if the output is correct. These are sort of the two different ways. And you can see here now 5B is not correct, but we almost have it. So the first thing we actually check is if we use exponentiation. So you see the hint here, so we do use that. So that's great. But then here we see that the correct output is not correct yet. So it should be 35,630, but it is something else. So we get a pointer here that we should probably still fix it, but we already get a hint here. Once I'm basically done with this assignment, I can just go to the next one and start working through that as well. Let's look at lesson 2 to get a bit of a better idea there. So as we are all, well, most of the people here are teachers, we'll go to this little percentage to letter grade assignment, which you may have done a lot in your courses, where you get a certain percentage and you want to know what letter grade fits with that. Again, we have some prereqs here, so the students should know about the print statement, the input set, the function, and the basics of conditionals. And this is also really nice for you as a teacher if you do your own custom assignments and you just want to load a couple of these in, you sort of know what the student should know to do these assignments. And again, the learning goal here is to use chained conditionals, and those are elifs in Python. Again, we got a task, and some example usage, and of course a learn more block as well. Then again, we can open this in CodeGrade. You can actually see I already tried this before the webinar started, but I only got a 40%. So I can actually create a submission, open the editor, and I can either start new from the template, but I'm actually going to start from my latest submission here. And when I was working on this before, I was able to get 90, 80, 70, but I still need to code in the 65. So again, within this editor, this is the Monaco editor that we integrated, which is the one that Microsoft develops. Let's see, grade is great, 65. I don't think I need those parentheses. Your letter is D, and done. And I should be able to hand in, and it hands it in. Again, here we just gives a certain input and expected output. And if that works, that's correct. Again, here we have a rubric here where functionality is 60%. If you use change conditionals, the additional 20%, and then error handling, additional 20%. Again, if you don't want this to be like this, if you just want it to be pass-fill, you can completely customize this to your needs, of course. But this is the default. So you see that works. So hopefully you get 100%. If I look at my previous, I started 100, then I had a 40%, and now I will hopefully get 100% again. And we should wait a couple seconds till it updates, and there we go. We have 100% now. if we actually edit this and then sort of remove the error handling, which is also, I think, an interesting one to quickly remove. Hand it in. And then we should get a new. So now we expect this invalid input to fail. So we should just get an 80%. But I want to showcase something else that we're using in this sort of auto-grading system. So again, we are using those the structure tests again to just check if they use change conditionals. But now you see actually the invalid input is not working. And there's an error tab now. And we can actually see what this does. And the issue is we got a value error because we try to cast something to an int that's not an int. And we use a Python package here that makes this error a bit more friendly. It's also called friendly. And you see, so this is the actual error you got, invalid literal for int with base 10 words. So we're trying to input words into this int function. And then you get a bit of an explanation what a value error is. So it indicates that a function or an operation receives an argument of the right type, but an inappropriate value. And then they say words is an invalid argument for int in base 10. So most often to use, and then you get a bit more. And then you actually also see exactly on which line this happens. So especially for beginners, this is a really nice tool to sort of make the error messages a bit more readable and a bit more beginner friendly. Even if you don't use CodeGrade, I recommend pointing your students to this package. It's really easy to use. All right, that's lesson 2, our example. Let's showcase something from lesson 3 when it gets a bit more difficult. So here, again, we are going to loops. Basically, students input a bunch of numbers until the inputs stop, and then they have to output maximum and minimum. All right, let's go to this assignment then. Same workflow, you can open editor from a template. And you see we start with an empty file in this case, and we will code this. We'll code it very fast. There we go. Again, this is also all these assignments, especially at the start, they're never really more than 20, 30 lines. As we move to sort of lesson 4, they get a bit longer. So you see we have a while loop here, so we're using some loops. I can head this in, and again, the automatic grading will work. And especially for these, we're also actually explicitly checking if the students use a while loop. Some creative students might try to do this with a for loop or something else. But the learning goal of this assignment is using a while loop. So they should use a while loop. So we're checking explicitly for that. Again, using one of those code structure tests. Again, it will run some typical given input, expect some outputs tests, which I'll pass. Then it's doing a code structure test to check if we use a while loop. And then again, we're using error. We're checking if the error handling is going well. All right, and that's also going well. So grades, we get 100% again. This all integrates with the grade center, of course, in the learning management system. And we can do that like that. Good question. I see. What about consistent style checker? So we have a styles checker built in. For this particular curriculum, it's not set up, but it's very easy to add it. And once I showcase the last sort of 2 assignments I want to showcase today, I will actually go and show how you can edit one of these assignments and, for instance, add a style checker. So let's go back. Lesson 4. We have this particular assignment. So now we got 2 assignments that are a little bit more difficult, where they have to use functions and then use lists and that kind of stuff. They get a nice little description here, learn more block. And I can actually, this is basically an assignment where they get a list as input and they have to print the unique values. And these are 2 connected assignments. So we have 4.4a and 4.4b. Again, I'm going to open the editor from the template. Nice thing here, I already get this list with the template, so I don't have to hide this from the assignment description. And here I have to basically create a function called unique items. that takes a list as input. And then let's make a little function to do it unique for list. You see, I can tab and autocomplete in the editor here. Let's make sure that, and then we just have to do print unique items, nationalities. And actually, in this particular assignment description, you also have to have an if name is main block. Or at least, I don't know if we need it in this assignment already, but it is good practice to do this. So I am going to do this. Hand this in. And then hopefully I typed it correctly. Otherwise we'll find it. Yeah, it is a requirement. So if we hadn't done this, maybe shouldn't have done this yet, then we actually get a nice little hint here that you call your function in if name is main block. And we're also making sure the students actually define a function with the name unique items. And then we are actually doing some tests with this. So again, the rubric is a bit different here. First, we check if they actually have unique items in if names main. And if we don't have that, we actually don't continue. So this is required for students to do this. So this is another nice auto-grading technique we're utilizing here. Again, now it's all working. But as you may know, if you want unique items in Python or any programming language, you probably shouldn't use a list. So that's why we go to 4.4b, hotel nationality list the easy way. And here the student will be taught about the set in Python. So this is the exact same assignment, but now when I create a submission open editor from templates, I can just use a set. So I can actually just do this and hand it in. So just casting it to a set will remove all the non-unique values. And this is a very nice way for students to sort of learn about this example. So first they do it the hard way, learn how, like basically what a set is, and what the sort of what the use case is for a set, and then they actually use it. So we have a lot of these kind of nice little things within this assignment bank. So let's quickly see if this actually works. So again, we're doing a structure test, checking if we cast nationalities to a set, but then also just checking the output. Again, it's required to do this, otherwise you cannot pass this assignment. So this is an assignment that uses multiple rubrics, but is still a pass-fail because you cannot get less than 100% basically. Lesson 4, finally, one more assignment I want to showcase, and then we're actually going to edit one. Lesson 5 then, let's go to the language detector. This is a bit more of a difficult assignment, a bit of a longer assignment where the students actually have to do a couple of things. They are learning about file input output here, learning how to use CSVs, and sort of combining a lot of the things. So they read a file as input, and then they have to analyze it, like letter frequencies and stuff like that. Again, a lot of learn mores here, so let's hand it in. Again, you can now download also the required files here, but again, I can also just open the editor. I'll do it from the template. And with this particular assignment, you start with some input files, some English text, some French text, some Dutch text, and a CSV. And then you actually start with starter code as well. So actually you get the Levenstein function already implemented here. And so students don't have to do that themselves. That's a bit out of scope at this point in the curriculum. But they have to create functions that uses this Levenstein. So they do have to read sort of how this works or read what Levenstein distance is, and then implement some functions around it. So I will do that. I'm just going to copy paste what our solution does. So let's get our functions in here. So we have a load language table function that takes a CSV file as input that loads it in a dictionary. We have a function that generates a letter frequency table with the file name. And then we have that converts it to letter string here. And then we just have to do the main stuff here. Where is it? Copy paste that in as well. And there we go. Hand it in and get my feedback straight away. This rubric is a bit more elaborate because it's it does a bit more this assignment. So first of all, do we use the CSV module and no other modules? So it's the goal that students learn about the CSV module here, and they shouldn't really have to use other modules to do that. We're checking if they created at least one new function, so they're not doing everything just in the sort of main block. And then we're checking the correct output. So we're actually checking the files that they generate and stuff like that. And you see that starts running straight away, and we should get some feedback here. That sort of gives you a good idea of the range of different assignments that is in the assignment bank, but you can also customize them if you want to. So let's actually start adding style to this. So I'm actually going to log out as my student and then log in as admin. So I'm here. Again, we can go to this language detector assignment. I'm going to load it in a new tab as a teacher because that gives me a bit more space. And you can see here all the students that have handed in. So only this test student has handed in here. You can actually see the code. I could give this student a bit more feedback, but let's first update the auto grading right here. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to the settings page. And on the settings page, we have a lot of options. Again, this is also where you could, for instance, turn off the editor if you don't want students to use an editor, or change the template if you want. But what I want to do is I want to add a new rubric category for code quality. So I'm going to rubric and I'm going to add a new category. And there's two options here. You can either use discrete, which is not one of these, where it's either 0, 5, or maybe 10 points. You can set that however you want, or have one of these continuous ones that can be anywhere from a scale to 0 to n. And then the more tests you get correct, the higher, the more points you score. Let's add for code quality then, add some additional tests, and we'll give the students 20 points for that. And we're actually going to reduce this 20 points as well, so we have a nice round number still of 100 points, and submit this. And maybe we want to give this Dutch code. Submit this, give them a little bit of a description, and then I can just go to this auto test tab and edit it. So what you can see here, currently we have a version running. We can actually see all the students that have handed in, and we're going to edit this auto grading. Once you stop this, you will see some stuff that has been set up. As these are part of our curriculum, they are set up with quite advanced features that in your sort of custom assignments you probably don't have to do, because we're sort of replacing a lot of stuff the students hand in and stuff like that. But basically, in general, all auto grading has 2 steps. They have a setup part where you upload any files you might need. So these are sort of input files. And then we have the actual tests here. And then you see we're also doing some student setup where we're actually removing all of the text and CSV files they handed in, just so we can replace them with the ones we know are correct. Then we have our actual test here. Again, we're using the structure unit tests for a lot of this stuff, but then we're also using just these give an input and expect an output. So we're running the student's program, again, with that friendly module that makes those error messages a lot more nice. Then we're giving it an input, so in this case, an input file, and then we expect the output to be correct. Again, the students output a lot more than this, but this is sort of the thing we're actually looking for. So we're ignoring everything else, and we just want to find this in the code. So let's add this code quality stuff to it. So again, I select the rubric I want to fill in, so code quality, and then I can create tests for this. There's a bunch of built-in tests, but I'm going for this code quality test here, which has a lot of static code analysis tools built in. So check code style. And then I select a linter. So for Python, I'm going to use Flake 8. I could have given a config file as well if I want extra arguments, but we're just going to leave it default. And then how this step actually works is you basically get a penalty based on the number of errors you have. You start at, let's say, 20 points for this, for instance. And then if you have 4 errors, you lose 80% of these 20 points. So maybe let's lower this a little bit as well, so the students aren't so penalized for their stuff. Save it, and then once I'm done with this, I can basically restart the auto-grading. It will rerun on all previous students. So always when the student hands in, they'll run on the newest version of the auto-grading that's set up for this assignment. And they can basically get the feedback there. So you can see it actually starting up. But I can also go back as a student now to sort of show how this works. So I'm going to log in as a student. And then if I go back to that 5.3 assignment and go to my latest submission, you can see it's running again. And I should get some code quality feedback, unless I did everything correct, which I cannot imagine. Let's give it a few seconds. And you see we get a failed here. And if I open this up, you can actually see I have a bunch of different errors. And if I click on one of these errors, you can actually see they also show up in the code. So for instance, line too long, there's a limit of 79 characters by default in the PEP8 style. If you want to change that, you can of course give your own configuration, but also you should have 2 blank lines between 2 functions. So what I can do as a student, I actually edit this and then maybe fix some of these errors. So let's go into this language detector and for instance, let's fix these errors. So hopefully that's already 2, and then I could fix some more stuff, hand it in, and now I should get a bit of a better score. It will just rerun and I can do as many submissions as I want, and you will get the feedback for it. So again, it's running, it will start updating. Exciting new features are coming to the auto-grading as well while this is running. As you see, it takes a bit of time to start up now. In about a month or so, 2 months, that won't be the case anymore. It will basically start running instantly. So that makes it a lot more sort of immersive for students as well. So unfortunately, we still get a lot of errors because there's so many lines too long. But I get less errors now, so that's good at least. But I can basically, as a student, just fix all of these errors and get good style. And then I'm basically sort of done with the design. So currently, you just get an 80% instead of 100. That was the main showcase of the assignment bank. Are there any questions at this point? All right, then I will stop the recording, and then we can have some other questions. I will stop the recording now.
Maybe one more question before the recording stops here. We got a good question. The question was if all the grading skills and the rubrics can be changed or not.
Yeah, so those can all be updated to sort of whatever you want it to be. Of course, also in the LMS itself, you can set the points that each assignment is worth, and CodeGrade will map automatically to that. The rubrics themselves you can update as well. I just updated this one, for instance. They're normal CodeGrade assignments that are completely customizable by you. We just get the data all there.
Yes.
Another good question: how do we add these assignments to course in LMS? Basically, the current way is will basically give you an export of the LMS, and so for instance in Canvas, I can quickly show it. Let's leave the student view. if I go to this, you can, in Canvas, for instance, in every LMS you have a way. What you will do is you will go to import course content, and it will be a Canvas export package. You will choose the file that we give to you. So basically reach out to us. We'll give you the file that you have to upload the newest version. We will create a better way of distributing this in the future, but for now, just send us an email. We'll send you the most updated one. And then you can select either all content or a specific one, and that will basically load everything in there. So that's basically a very simple way of getting everything in your LMS. Another question, how flexible is the style checker? And can you easily switch to camel case instead of underscores? That depends a bit on the language and on the style checker. So for Python, I think it's very flexible, Devin.
Yes, so with Pilot specifically, you can set up a lot of configuration files. You can configure it any way that you want to reflect your own style guide. With Flake 8, you're basically just checking like the standard PEP 8 Python style guide.
Yeah, so for Python, we actually also have Pilot. I forgot about that. And that's a lot more configurable. Flake 8 is a bit less. So Pilot, you can basically supply the config file, so you can literally just Google for Pilot config. And then, it's basically, these are generally done with files like this. So it's a bit of looking through how to exactly do it, but we can also help you with that, of course.
Yes. And we do have some configuration files laying around, I think, which you can just use.
Yeah. Again, if you want to have a personalized demo of the assignment bank, or want to play around with it, or want to know anything else about CodeGrade, you can always reach out to us or Lena, of course, and then we can help you with that, of course. All right, let me actually stop the recording now.